So I just finished watching season 2 of Loki, and I have some things to say about it. Now, as you know, if you've been watching my channel, I am not the biggest fan of the current state of the MCU. I think the MCU has taken a nosedive, both in quality and just an overall success. I think it has been very, very mediocre over the past 2 years. I haven't seen the Marvels yet, I'm seeing it tonight, so that'll be a review out on that tomorrow, but I'm kind of expecting more of the same. Now, Loki season 2 for a lot of people has kind of been that outlier. I see it getting very, very good reviews. It's in, like, I think the high 80s on Rotten Tomatoes. I just see a lot of people around the world really, really loving this show, and I have to say, I might be on the minority of opinion on this. I think this show is kind of more of the same from the modern MCU. I just didn't exactly love it, besides the finale. I will say, I thought the finale was really, really good. It wasn't perfect, I do have some complaints about it, but I thought the finale was a satisfying conclusion to hopefully the Loki character. I'm sure they'll end up bringing him back and doing a million things with him and undoing what they did, but I thought it was a very satisfying conclusion, both to the Loki that we knew from earlier in the MCU to this Loki on this show. I thought it was a really good conclusion to the character, and I thought it was really well written and really well done at the end of this episode, so I hope they don't continue it and they don't ruin this, because it felt really, really nice. But ultimately, I thought the finale was definitely satisfying. It was a little over-convoluted, but I'll get more into that in a little bit. But I do have to talk about the first 5 episodes of this show, because I just thought they were kind of, you know, for lack of a better term, I just thought they were stinky, man. They were just absolute, just bores, hard to sit through. I couldn't believe I saw people freaking out about it. I'm like, this is the most generic and boring MCU, you know, series that I think I've watched. It was just nothing. Versus the first season, which I did really, really like, and I felt like the first season had this flair to it, where every episode kind of felt like this buddy cop thing between Loki and Mobius, and I really loved that relationship and this kind of like going to different time periods and seeing these different things and the mystery of the TVA. That was all interesting and fascinating, and through the episodes, it got better and better. You know, although the Sylvie stuff kind of sucked in the first season, altogether, it felt like a pretty good package, and every episode just felt visually and cinematically above everything from this season. Whereas the first few episodes in this season are just really nothing burgers. It feels like there was no visual soul to it. It felt so similar to everything else I've seen in the MCU, which is what the first season kind of differed from. And they introduced a bunch of new characters, none of which really worked. Ki-Hu Kwan is here. I couldn't even tell you his character's name, but he's kind of like the inventor guy at the TVA. And although Ki-Hu Kwan is a great actor and he brings a lot of charm to this character, the character just doesn't really do anything. They also bring back Jonathan Majors, who's playing another version of Kang, and this has to be my least favorite performance from him, at least my least favorite character. Victor Timely just comes off as being very, very annoying, and they never really give a lot of clarity to where he fits in on the whole Kang timeline, Kang character. Like, where does he fit in the Kang multiverse? Because we know there's a bunch of other Kangs who are super powerful and super all, you know, all these other things, but how is it that this Kang is just kind of like a bumbling, you know, moron? So I really just didn't enjoy his character, and he doesn't really serve too much of a purpose other than to pull at some heartstrings later in the season, but by the time you get to the ending, he's just like completely forgotten and just does nothing. Loki as a character throughout the whole season is the one thing they definitely get right. I feel like he did a great job, obviously Tom Hiddleston playing the character, and the character here is just so much more fun and so much smarter, and he really feels center stage as this powerful mainline character, which I appreciated. I do think Owen Wilson's Mobius kind of takes a back seat in this season. He just didn't really feel too important, and I love this character. I think it's one of the best characters that Marvel's created in this new Marvel, you know, this last Phase 4 and Phase 5. I also think Sylvie takes a back seat. Like, I didn't really care for her character in the first season, and I really didn't care for her character in this season. Like, her character's just kind of there yet again. There's also like a weird arc with Renslayer and Miss Minutes that doesn't really go anywhere by the time you get to the finale. Let me just make this clear. This whole show kind of felt like She-Hulk. So She-Hulk ran a bunch of episodes that were really boring and really sluggish and just not funny, and they all built up to a finale, and then in the finale, they just kind of jokingly broke the fourth wall and said, fuck that, everybody knows the finale we've been building to is horseshit, so we're just gonna do something crazy and out of the loop to like kind of rewrite the finale, and forget everything you saw before this episode, none of it matters, we're just doing a new thing in the finale. And that's kind of what this season felt like. They kind of set up a lot of characters, a lot of ideas, and a lot of themes, and then in the finale, I guess when they sat down to write that, it feels like they were like, guys, this is, we're leading up to a really shit finale, so maybe we should just do something crazy and bananas and something that's Endgame-like and do this big epic story in this finale, and people will like that. And to their credit, it works. But the build-up, I just did not like it all. And I know a lot of people thought episode 4 was really dark and visually scary and haunting, and I just thought episode 4 was a nothing burger because it ends on this big cliffhanger that everybody died. But yet again, this is the MCU where there really are no stakes and there is no tension in any of these movies because we have 50 other movies that are announced. So at the end of episode 4, when the timeline blows up and all of time is ending, we know that the MCU is not over, and we know it's not ending. And although I know Infinity War kind of pulled off that ending where a bunch of characters died and, you know, the audience knows they're not dead for good, it did that better because we knew we had to wait a whole year to get the answer for that. We had to wait a whole year knowing these characters are dead and not knowing how they're going to come back, versus Loki where we had to just wait a week. And then the answer to what happened is just not satisfying at all, and episode 5 ends up being one of the most boring episodes of any MCU show. But then we get to the finale, and like I said already in this video, the finale's really good. It's pretty epic. It brings back the best version of Jonathan Majors Kang that we've seen in the guy at the end of time, this leader of the TVA. He's a really, really cool version of the character. He kind of feels like the godfather of Kangs. He's the one that won the previous Kang War. He's a really, really cool version of Kang, and we kind of see Loki confronting him, and we get some callbacks to the first season, and we just get this whole complete character arc of Loki that I'm not sure really makes sense going forward in the MCU, like the canon here, and a lot of the, you know, and I'm not talking about Loki the character, but I'm just talking about like the overall multiverse, how they're telling the story of the multiverse in the MCU, and how they're trying to explain how these systems work. I'm not sure they all really work. We also yet again have a character having to confront the tough decision of, do we allow the multiverse to happen in which there's going to be a major war that kills everybody, or do we just leave one universe? And for the second straight season, they made the decision to let the multiverse flourish, and I don't think that's like good writing. I think it's stupid because the characters know at this point that the multiverse is really dangerous, and we know with the movies coming up that it's going to get even more dangerous. So it's just, it's kind of confusing. There are some really good moments in the finale though, some really funny moments. I thought it was the best comedy that I've seen in the MCU in a while. There were really like good laugh out loud moments. I thought the whole arc, yet again, the character arc that Loki goes through, ranging all the way back from the original Thor to where he ends up at the end of this episode, I think was really good and really well done and really well written. And although I don't completely understand what they're doing with the multiverse, it feels so much more convoluted than it should be. It feels like something that should be relatively simple and relatively easy to connect to everything else, but they've just made it super, super complicated for some reason, and it just keeps getting more complicated and more complicated, and I'm not interested enough to really dig into it and truly understand it at this point, and I think most fans of the MCU at the moment are probably in the same exact position. Like, clearly this is going to, like, what happens in this episode is going to be important to the rest of the MCU moving forward. Like, obviously, it's going to be important to the Kang Dynasty, to Secret Wars, all those movies, but for some reason, I feel like most fans of the MCU, most, general fans, probably aren't going to have all seen Loki Season 2. So having to re-explain everything that happened here and put it into those movies is going to be a pain in the ass. I also feel like this show as a whole kind of takes the stakes and the threat and all of the stuff that they spent 10 years building up in the first saga of Infinity War and kind of takes a shit on it. I always remember that one scene where they open the drawer in the first season. You just see the Infinity Stones there. And I get that that's Marvel's way of being like, oh, you think Thanos was powerful? This is the real threat. But I feel like there's ways to do that without taking a gigantic shit on all of the work that you had done the previous 10 years. And watching this episode, the finale, with some of the powers that Loki gets and other characters have, it's like, man, this really kind of just makes everything in the last, 10 years of movies feel like a waste of time. And I just don't think that was a very smart idea for them to do. One big compliment I have to give is the score. This is the best score in the entire MCU. There is one scene that if you watch the finale, you know exactly what I'm talking about, where the score, it's good. It is really, really good. They did not need to go this hard on the score for a Loki show, but they did, and I'm glad that they did. The MCU needs to focus more on scores because a lot of these movies have absolutely nothing going for them when it comes to the music department. But all in all, I think I'm going to give Loki Season 2 a 3 out of 5. It's just another good MCU show. It's not great. Without the finale, it's probably a 2 out of 5, but I will say I really enjoyed the finale. Although it's a little over-convoluted, I had a good time with it. I was happy with the ending. I was satisfied, so I will give the whole show, or the whole season, a 3 out of 5. I think it's good. I think if you love the MCU still, still, you're gonna love this show. If you're not really into the MCU anymore, you're probably not gonna be really into this. But yep, that's it. I hope you guys liked the video. Make sure to like it and subscribe. Make sure to turn on notifications. I'll see you guys in the next one.